So I remember many years ago, almost 50 years ago now, I was a student in college, and Ram Dass came to give a talk. And this was my very first experience of listening to someone talk about Eastern philosophy. And one of the questions he brought to us was, have you ever noticed that whatever time it is always now? And something hit me there. Um, it's always now. How about that? I never thought of that before. And immediately, I was studying philosophy at the time, and my mind started racing. It's like, it's always now. It's always now. Wow, what does that mean? And so my mind kind of stopped for a second. And then I realized, well, we say there's a past and a future. But the past and the future are ideas, and those ideas are happening now. The thoughts of the past and the future are happening now. And then we have feelings, we hear sounds, we see sights. All those experiences, whether they're memories or anticipations of something in the future, they're all just happening right now. So our whole life really is just now. It's always now. So when we think, say, a few hours ago, maybe we had lunch. Is the now of having lunch any different than the now of listening to a video, watching a video right now? Is the now of having lunch any longer or shorter than the now that is right here now, that is present right now? So if it's always now, we could say that one thing about our life that has always been the same, that's never changing, is that it's always been now. Right? Now, there is one other aspect of our life that we could say intersects with the now, and that's the idea of space, or the idea of being here. Normally we think we're here in space. There's something here called Roger that's in space. But is there really any other place that we can point to in space that is separate from the here that is now? In other words, no matter how far out in space we travel, you can imagine going trillions and trillions of eons into the past or into the future. Wherever you ended up, you'd still be the possibility of going further and further into more trillions of eons into the past or the future would still be exactly the same as it is right now. So wherever we are, we're here. Here and now don't have any objective qualities, but they intersect. There is no here without the now, and there is no now without here. Even though these are ideas, our intuitive mind points to one timeless infinity. And that timeless infinity levels all playing fields. There's that, adage in sports, a great coach will level all playing fields. It's one of the platitudes my swim coach told me when I was young. But you can say timeless infinity sort of does away with the reality. If we actually pay attention to our real experience of being a separate being, what is different about the always timeless and always boundless infinity that we each experience in our lives all the time, that's always there for all of us? Where's the gap between that here and now that I experience or you or anyone else experiences. Where's that gap? Except in the thought in our mind that there's some gap. So, Buddha wasn't really interested in metaphysical theories about here and now, but he grounded his philosophy and his spiritual teaching on the reality that what is always here and is always now is the foundation of our life. He was interested in how we exist right here and now. And he was interested primarily in how we end human suffering. So our conditioning is very, very deep to want to go somewhere else to avoid our suffering. That impulse is very, very, very strong. And we may have a pretty clear intellectual understanding of how there's no place to go and there's no way to avoid suffering. But our impulse is to go into a memory or thought as a way to avoid our suffering. And so one question we can ask ourselves is, what is our suffering without memory or thought? Like memory and thought can suggest a past and a future. But if we actually try and go there in our actual experience, go into the past or go into the future, we've never been there. So not only have we never been there, but nobody has ever been there. We've only been here right now. So Buddha's teaching was learn to take refuge in here and now. In other words, in our actual being. Go to our actual experience of ourselves. And instead of trying to move away from suffering, begin to explore and realize that suffering is an idea. And the strong sensations that we feel in our body, suggest that there's something wrong. And there may be a real intensity to these feelings. And sometimes we do want to move away. And involuntarily we will attempt to move away from that suffering. But if we're really, really engaging that central question, what is it that is always here? We begin to sense a background of our awareness that is always peaceful, always accepting whatever experience is actually here. And the spirit of that intuitive feeling can lead us to questions, real self-inquiry questions that encourage us to stay with our actual experience of what a painful sensation is. Can we find an actual edge to a sensation? Is it not part of that boundless reality that knows no limits? So it's not a solid thing, minus our thinking and our memories of what a painful sensation is. It's not a solid thing. In our actual experience, we can realize that it's just always moving, always changing. One example I like to use sometimes is of a bird flying high in the air into the clouds. When the bird actually goes into the cloud, does he actually enter? Is there any experience of the bird? Does she experience going into encountering some solid thing made of matter? It's more like just kind of there's an interpenetration and just moving into something that's always moving and changing. So the solidity and the density of our painful sensations can begin to loosen up when we get in touch with the ever-changing and transient nature of all sensations. And at the same time, we're relieved of the preoccupation of our thoughts about it, our stories about the sensation. And we begin to sense that peace that is emanating from the timeless infinity that's always accepting and always welcoming whatever sensations we feel. So we can begin to see that actually the symptoms or the experiences, our actual experiences of being here and now, is a peace and a happiness when we realize the freedom of our thinking, of our memories, and of our anticipations and expectations, that we can take refuge in the now, find the courage to face whatever pain there is. Not beyond reason, not to go search it out or to force ourselves to remain in an extremely, extremely painful experience. But also there's something moving us towards that which it always is, and that which is always accepting and loving everything.